As the president of Thai London and on behalf of Thai Global, it's a great honor today to have the pride and joy of India, Mr. Sunil Gavaskar. He's better known as Sunny Bhai, so I'll address him as such as a mark of respect. In the 1980s, Sunny Bhai faced a barrage of fast bowlers, Malcolm Marshall, Michael Holding, Andy Roberts, Courtney Walsh, Wes Hall, Joel Garner. All of them were probably 6 and higher, 6 feet, 6 inches. And when they bowled, obviously the ball came from a height of 8 feet. And here was a little master facing all of them without helmet, 5 feet, 5 inches, if I guessed his height right.
Yes.
So he was the lone warrior carrying the burden of the Indian team. We didn't have a lot of fast bowlers at that time. One of them you will see a video later on from, who's asking questions to Sunny Bhai. His on-field caliber is known to all of us, but many of us don't know his off-the-field humanitarian work that he's done with his H2H Foundation that after retirement he dedicated his time to. Our companies have sponsored over 75 surgeries for little children with congenital birth defect, heart defects. We will show a short video, 2-minute video, and then we'll ask Sunny Bhai to say a word about his foundation before we begin the main show.
मेरा नाम उमेश है और मैं दिल्ली से हूँ। मेरे पापा एक वेल्डिंग वर्कर हैं और मेरी मदर एक हाउसवाइफ है। और मैं थैंकफुल हूँ इस हॉस्पिटल से, श्री सत्य साई संजीवनी हॉस्पिटल और हार्ट टू हार्ट फाउंडेशन का, कि मेरे उन्होंने एक ज़िंदगी दिया और इस ज़िंदगी को मैं अपने अरमानों के साथ साथ दूसरों को भी मदद करना चाहता हूँ जो इस लाइफ से गुजर रहे हैं।
Yes. Firstly, thank you for having me here and giving me the opportunity to speak about the Heart to Heart Foundation. The Heart to Heart Foundation has been set up over the last few years only, not since I finished playing. I finished playing in the last century. we are in this century. So what the Heart to Heart Foundation has been doing is creating awareness of the congenital heart defects in children in India. Every year, on an average, about 300,000 children are born with congenital heart defects in India. And most of it is due to malnutrition during pregnancy, and therefore, it sort of affects the child in the womb, and therefore, you have this problem. And many cannot afford surgeries. When they go to hospitals, they cannot afford surgeries. Not a lot of them are actually aware as to what is the problem with their child. But what the Heart to Heart Foundation is doing is the Heart to Heart Foundation is looking to create this awareness that there is an urgent need to come forward and help save children's lives. So in collaboration with the Sri Satya Sai Sanjeevani hospitals, and there are 3 Sri Satya Sai Sanjeevani hospitals. One is in Palwal in Haryana, about an hour's drive from Delhi. The other one is in Chhattisgarh, New Raipur. And the third one is in Kharghar, Mumbai. Again, an hour's drive from Mumbai, hour and a bit drive from Mumbai. Now, at these hospitals, every single surgery is done without charging the patient anything. The patients come from a background where they don't have much. A lot of times they come with just a one-way ticket, can afford only a one-way ticket. Invariably, they are from the villages, from the interiors of the country. And they can only barely come. And so what the hospital has done is, the hospital, once they admit the patient, the parents also have an annex where they can stay. Nothing is charged, not a penny is charged. And the surgeries are performed, as I said, completely free of cost. Up to now, since the inception of the first hospital in 2012, the Sai Sanjeevani hospitals have performed almost 15,500 surgeries. And on an average now, with the third hospital coming in, on an average of a little over 400 surgeries in a month. That is what is happening with surgeries as well as cath interventions. And now we have a mother-child initiative as well. If I might just take a little time, I'm not very familiar with these instruments. Yeah. And now under our mother and child healthcare program, we have now covered 94,117 mothers and babies and their babies till as of yesterday. So the Heart to Heart Foundation is helping to save children's lives. And believe you me, I've been there. I've been at Palwal. I was recently in Raipur when simultaneously the Legend series was being played, where Sachin Tendulkar and all and Brian Lara Peterson and all played. And the hospital is literally a stone's throw away from that stadium. But because of the restrictions, COVID restrictions, I couldn't actually go and meet them. But believe you me, and again in Mumbai, Kharghar, Mumbai, to see the expression on the parents' faces when the doctors come out and tell them that the surgery has been successful, and the success rate in the 3 hospitals with the surgeries is over 99%. So the success rate also is unbelievable. To see the faces of the parents, the first, when the doctors come, there's always the apprehension. Are they going to give me good news or bad news? That expression of worry. Then when the doctors tell them that your child is going to live a normal, healthy life, and once that sinks in, that the child is going to lead a normal, healthy life, then the expression of joy that that they have on their faces, I promise you, even a double century does not, did not give me, that kind of happiness. Just to see that, and that is what motivates all of us in the Heart to Heart Foundation. The medical staff there is unbelievable. They look after the babies as if it's their own baby, their own child, and it's just unbelievable. The whole atmosphere over there is fantastic. It just, if you go there, you'll just be taken in by the whole family-like atmosphere there. So this is what I'm trying to sort of do as much as I can during my cricketing travels, to try and spread the knowledge about, or awareness about the problem in India first of congenital heart defects in children and what one can do. Having said that, when we talk about children from India, we've had children from Afghanistan, we've had children from Pakistan, we've had children from Africa coming in, and they've also been attended to. They've also been, the procedures have been performed on them as well. But clearly, because there are hospitals in India, the Indian children obviously are are given, the preference. But I mean, it's something which I'm so happy and blessed to have been able to do. My first innings in life was as a player. My second innings in life has been as a media person for TV and writing occasionally. And this is my third innings. And I think this is going to be the most fulfilling of all my innings. Very seldom is a person blessed to have 3 innings in life. I mean, our lives are such that, we are always, basically get 2 innings, where we are working, and after working retirement, that's the second innings. I am really blessed to be able to do something like this. And for that, I can only thank my Lord, Sri Satya Sai Baba, for giving me this opportunity, because these are his hospitals. And like he said, everything is completely free of cost. And like he said, in these hospitals, there's only dil, there is no bill. And so there we are. And I'm so thankful to all of you all to have come here and, heard me out. And I think you saw where you can get involved with it. Get involved. Sri Satya Sai Sanjeevani Hospitals, please go on that. And if you want to join the fight to save children's lives, you're most welcome. And every little help that we can get will be most appreciated. So thank you. And he has been instrumental, as he said, in 75 surgeries. He has been unbelievable, because I think I started off a little bit by giving him a bit of chabi. So I said, look, I've done 35, because why 35? Because those are my 35 international hundreds. So I've done 35, so I've done 35 surgeries. I've contributed for 35 surgeries. So he said, no, then I will do 37, not even 36, 37. So now that was the first year. Second year when I contributed again for 35, he said, no, fine. So that's how he's gone to over 75. And with my birthday coming in about 10, 15 days time, I will make another contribution, get to God willing, get to 100 life-saving surgeries. How many first-class hundreds? 81, altogether 81. So that's what I'm looking to do, and I'm so happy that he has come on board and he's doing this contribution. And it's his initiative for Thai, but he said, look, Thai, I want to spread the word along with you. So please speak about H2H. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunny Bhai. Thanks for sharing that experience and for the viewers to know more about the H2H Foundation. We've used, of course, our CSR monies in India to do these surgeries. So I strongly urge people to support this foundation for children. So without ado, though I have one more story, but I think I'm going to leave it for now. But without ado, I'm going to give the mic to Ashish. Ashis Ray is a BBC commentator, writer. Several of his books are available on Amazon. Please feel free. And all of you, many of you know him for a long time. For over 50 years, he's been a commentator. Thank you. Ashish, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vikas, and welcome to everybody, wherever you are. We have a limited in-person audience because of COVID restrictions, but we have many people, I'm told, online and participating in this very special occasion. So we are together in what I would describe as a rendezvous between 2 great foundations. One funding and mentoring entrepreneurs, and the other helping children with congenital heart problems. It cannot be better. It's a great privilege and a pleasure to be here, to be part of 2 great causes. And I will encourage everyone to submit your questions in advance for Sunil, which we will tackle in due course. We'd like to make this as interactive as possible, and I will do my best to accommodate as many questions as possible. So, on to cricket, and why not? 50 years ago, India beat the West Indies and England in a test match and series for the first time. It happened back to back. One series was concluded in the month of April, and it was a summary of that series that brought me into broadcasting. And then later that summer, in the month of August, India completed a victory in England to make it a joyous moment and what I describe as a major turning point in the history of Indian cricket. That year was also when Sunil Gavaskar made his debut in international cricket. In just 4 test matches in the Caribbean, he scored 774 runs with an average of 154.8. It deserves an applause. And it included 3 centuries and 2 double centuries. Or sorry, 3 centuries and 1 double century, which was his final innings in the last test match.
I didn't interrupt you because, you know, if you had said only 3 centuries and nothing, I would have interrupted you. When you said 2, no, that's good.
Yes, well, I exaggerated a little bit, but it's a minor matter. 50 years from now, you know, you tend to forget a little. But my question is very fundamental. You, as a 21-year-old, never having played cricket at that level, how did you manage that kind of a performance?
Sometimes I wonder myself. But I guess the fact that I was vertically challenged, I am still, meant that when I opened the batting, even at the club level, schools level, guys tried to bowl quick at me, had that extra yard or 2 of pace, extra sort of energy, tried to bounce me out. So while you would think that that would have been around 130 kilometers per, as we say now, 130, 135 kilometers per hour mark, it at least got you thinking about how to deal with that kind of a delivery. What your attitude should be about the bouncer, for example. That is the one that actually, the bouncer is the one that actually sets the batsman up. A lot of bowlers use the bouncer for the effect that will have on the next delivery, not necessarily for the bouncer to get you out. If the bouncer gets you out, great. But the follow-up delivery, it could be the yorker, it could be the, you know, the outswing around the off stump which you go for when your balance is on the back foot, anticipating another bouncer. So that having, you know, at that age itself, decided how to sort of, you know, deal with the short ball was a big help when you actually went into international cricket. Also, before that happened, what I used to do was have the Mumbai Ranji Trophy bowlers, fast bowlers, bowl from say about 20 to 18 yards, instead of the regulation 22 yards.
Was this just before you went to the West Indies?
It was before I went to the West Indies. And they would, because as it is, not too many bowlers in the nets are mindful of their no ball. 99% of them overstep regularly in the nets, which doesn't help them when they go into the matches. You know, you can say, oh, in the matches it'll be all right. Doesn't. The 3 bowlers that I know who, having watched them practice, and fast bowlers have a tendency, because of the effort ball, because of the extra long stride that fast bowlers have, they have a tendency to overstep. The 3 bowlers I didn't see even in the nets, in the practice, Kapil Dev, never in the nets also. No ball. Another one, Imran Khan, never in the nets. And the third one was Richard Hadley. Now with Richard Hadley and Imran Khan, you know, if they were practicing, if Pakistan and New Zealand team were practicing around, then you would watch them. As an opening batsman, I wanted to watch them to try and glean maybe somewhere that this is what they might be bowling in the match if there is a particular delivery. So you're looking at everything, right from the run up, right from, you know, how he's holding the ball. And because this is a closer distance in the nets, sometimes when two teams practice together. Now, of course, now things have changed to the extent that one team practices first and then the other team comes in and practices after that. But those days, sometimes, you know, there were nets on two sides of the ground. The middle was where the match was going to be played. And on either side, you would have, you know, players practicing. So that's where I noticed that these guys never bowled no balls at all. But again, when I went to the West Indies, the difference was stark. Because suddenly, despite the fact that the Mumbai bowlers were bowling from 18 yards, the ball would still be around the midriff when the wicketkeeper collected it. So when you went to the West Indies, suddenly, you know, the wicketkeeper was collecting the ball with the fingers pointing up, not fingers pointing down. So that meant that you're now contending with something different. You're contending with how to deal with this, because the bouncer in India would come around at this height. You could control most of them, either leave them or control them, but in the West Indies, they were going to be that much higher and also coming from a much shorter length, much nearer length, not shorter length. Indian bowlers, to try and get the ball up, were bowling from a shorter length. So they would probably bang the ball in from there. They would bang it in around the middle of the pitch thing. The West Indian fast bowlers pitching it a little further up, maybe 2 or 3 yards further up, and still getting the ball to bounce. So then what do? Do you hook? Do you sway out of the way? So those are the things that you have to adjust to. And luckily I managed to do that. And also, very simply, the fact that I had a lot of luck going in that first series. I was batting only on 12 in my first innings in Test cricket. I went for a drive, got a thick outside edge, and Gary Sobers, the greatest of all cricketers, just had a simple catch, down there. I got a half century, kept my place in the team, and went in for the next test. Next test I was batting on 6, went for a cut, and this time the ball flew off the outside edge and hit again to Gary Sobers. And we were playing at Guyana, and Guyana, it is difficult to, you know, see the red ball in the background of the crowd, because, you know, the West Indian spectators always came in colorful shirts, so, you know, you would lose the ball in the background of the crowd sometimes unless you were fiercely concentrating. And so it hit him on the chest and it went up, but by the time he could gather his wits, the ball went down.
So he lost it in the crowd, possibly.
I think he lost it in the crowd.
Yeah.
And so I got my first Test century. And since then, you know, I mean, I managed to play 17 years for India. And so that also is one of the reasons that I'm involved with the H2H, because I got a second cricketing life with those dropped catches, my second innings. Here with the surgeries for the H2H children, you are giving them a second innings in life. So, you know, I mean, there was that connect straight away. But to come back to cricket, that was it, I think. And it just happened that, you know, things fell in place. I had the fantastic example of Dilip Sardesai.
Yes, I was about
at the start.
Yes.
When he played a marvelous innings of double 100. Then partnership with Eknath Solkar. Now, Eknath Solkar, we had, you know, grown up together, playing schools cricket, playing for Mumbai, for West Zone, for India schools, where he was captain of India schools. And Eki was absolutely, I mean, coming from humble beginnings, his temperament was amazing, absolutely amazing. In that first test, which I didn't play, there was this partnership, between Dilip Sardesai and Eknath Solkar. Sardesai was well past 100 at that stage. And so the umpires decided to change the ball because the ball had lost shape or whatever it is. So what Dilip did was, Dilip just sat down on the ground to recover, you know, his breath. And he told Eknath, go and make sure that the umpires, because those days were local umpires, not third country umpires as you see now. So make sure that the the ball is similar wear and tear. So Eknath went there, and so we had the ball being given. Now batsmen have, they cannot ask for the ball. That's a tradition of the game. Once the umpires replace it, they cannot ask for it. So what the umpires did was give the ball to Gary Sobers, the West Indies captain, and Eknath asked, "Can I see the ball?" And Gary Sobers said to him, "What difference is it going to make? You're still going to play and miss." Because that's what. But Eki was hanging there, playing and missing, so he was hanging in there.
And Dilip got a double hundred.
Dilip got a double hundred.
Yeah.
And Eknath Solkar said to Gary Sobers, when Gary said, what difference is it going to make? Eknath Solkar said, that's what Dilip Sardesai came and told us. He said, "You play your game and I'll play my game." Now, somebody telling the greatest of all cricketers something like that, I mean, it took lots of, guts and courage and, self-belief. When we came to know this, that Eknath had stood up and, told us, all of us also got that, So sometimes it's not just a performance on the field. Sometimes there is just that little bit of a, remark or a show of, courage that can lift you up. And I think that sort of, was infectious and contagious, because all of us from then onwards, all the newcomers, there was Vishy who had only played one series, there was Jayant Hilal, all of them, we all got into this mood that, look, we can do well and beat this team.
To move on to a little later in your career, and I'm reminded of this because we've just watched this test match at Southampton, and there was, as many of you would have seen, this very tall New Zealand fast bowler, Kyle Jamieson, 6'8", and he was obviously the most successful bowler in the match and instrumental in carving a victory for New Zealand. Having watched him, I was reminded of Joel Garner, whom you played in the 80s, and I would like you to give us a comparison between the two bowlers. Their heights are about the same.
Same, yeah.
Yes.
I think even a Big Bird, as Joel was called, he was, I think, 6'8" as well. And yes, I think a lot of times with, again, somebody as short as I am, when we're taking our guard and we're standing there, we tend to, the delivery is up there. So a lot of times, they used to find it odd that I am actually asking for people to sit down. But if I was a taller person, if I was 6 feet, then if I stood there, then I'd probably be looking at this level when the ball is being bowled. But when I'm a little bit down, I'm looking at the ball coming high. So therefore, anything above the side screen that moves is going to just disturb you. Even Sachin Tendulkar later on, when he used to ask for the side screen to be, the height of the side screen to be increased, everybody used to say, why is he doing it? But not a lot of people, and all those who were asking were about 6 feet tall. So for them, that was not the issue. Because they didn't understand that what it meant to a,
because you were looking up.
Exactly, you're looking at the delivery is up there.
Yeah.
So with Big Bird, it was always difficult. We actually, Big Bird and I, when I played for Somerset 1 year, he and I, we shared a flat. And so we got to know each other quite well. And just again, going a little further up, going to the World Cup final. The 30th anniversary was celebrated yesterday in Delhi by launching a book, a 35 kilo book, coffee table book. So I missed it, but I was online, thank God, with this new technology. So in that first over he bowled in the finals to me, everything was pitched up and the Lord's slope, the ball was just flying past my face. I just couldn't get anywhere close to it. Second over, he bowled 2 deliveries, which again went like this, past my face. And so when the third delivery, luckily he bowled a little bit further onto this thing, and I tried to flick it. It went off my pads, went to deep fine leg for a leg by. And as I took that leg by run, I went past Garner, who was in his follow-through and walking back to his mark. The follow-through also was there. So I said to him, having shared a flat with him 3 years earlier, I said to him, hey, Bird, how about one off the mark for your old flatmate? I was still on 0. I wanted one off the mark. It's the finals of the World Cup. You don't want to get out for a 0. So I said, hey, Bird, how about one off the mark for your old flatmate? And he's walking past me. He says, no, man, this is the World Cup final. No freebies for you. So,
Yes.
so it's not easy. You got to concentrate fiercely at the release point. And if you, and Bird always had this, he wasn't perhaps as quick as the other 3 fast bowlers, but his bounce was even better,
Yes.
simply because of his height. And he had this unbelievable Yorker. So, the thing is, with the other fast bowlers in the West Indies lineup, you had to watch your nose. With Big Bird, with his Yorker, you had to watch your toes.
Now, I got the impression, correct me if I'm mistaken, that Garner used to thump it down, and which is where his bounce came.
Yeah.
But this man, Jameson, seems to be skimming the ball.
Yeah, I think he's one of the typical modern bowlers who bowl just short of length, because the thinking is that if you restrict a batsman, he's going to try and do something silly. The influence of the one-day game is such that not a lot of today's batsmen have the patience to grind it out. They want to, counter-attack the bowler. Now that can work often in limited overs cricket, white ball cricket. The white ball doesn't move as the red ball. There are not that many fielders in the catching position, so thick edges can go. But in Test cricket, it's just a little bit difficult. But and therefore that length that he was bowling was extraordinary, because that didn't allow our batsmen to get onto the front foot, nor really be able to play the cut shot or the pull shot.
Yeah, yeah. Very good bowler, very promising indeed.
Very good cricketer.
And to move on to another area, which again is yesterday and today, which is helmets. You never wore a helmet in your career, but today it is mandatory. What is the technical and psychological difference between wearing a helmet and not wearing a helmet?
Well, I not having worn a helmet, I wouldn't really know. I think during the time we played, helmets were not even there. The thigh guard was barely coming in when I played. So my first year in the West Indies, most of our batsmen, all our batsmen in fact, used to stuff the face towels that you get in your hotels that are there. We used to stuff them in our pockets. That used to be some protection against, for the thigh. But now what has happened is now the equipment has got better, whether it is, whether it's gloves or even leg guards, they're sturdy.
And it's not just helmets, it's a grill as well.
So very seldom do you find any batsmen's, having their fingers broken by their fingers getting jammed between the ball and the bat handle. Very seldom do you find that, because the gloves are so good and light as well. But with the helmet, I would imagine that there is a sense of security, that even if you miss it, you got the helmet, and it's going to, not maybe have a serious effect. They have, of course, the concussion protocol that even if there's a glancing blow, the doctor has to come in and ask you 3-4 questions, something like, what's your name? How much is this? What are you doing? I don't know whether anybody, first it's a bit, obviously when you get a blow on the helmet, it does sort of shake you up a little bit. And I don't know whether anybody has had the sense of humor to say, no, I'm just playing football here or something like that. Fast.
Well, I think you made a very good point, security, because a batsman can become fearless, knowing full well that even if he gets hit on the head, he's not going to die. And we had this very tragic situation of the Indian captain, Nari Contractor, going to the West Indies in 1962 and almost losing his life. He was hit on the temple in a Barbados match and had to, in fact, retire for the rest of the series. Never played Test cricket or international cricket ever again. So it brings me to the other point, which is that do you think that because of this fearlessness that a batsman today has, he can be more attacking?
I think it's not just the protective equipment that he has. I think it's the cushion that they have in terms of the 2020 leagues that they can be part of. So when we played test matches, whatever test match income we got, 500 rupees, or when I finished playing cricket, it was 5,000 rupees for a test match. That was extra income for us. If we didn't do well and we were dropped from the test team, we had to go back to a job, whether it was with Tata's, Railways, Air India, whatever, Steel Authority. We had to go back to that, to a 9-to-5 job. Today, that worry or fear is not there, because there is the IPL, there is the Big Bash, there is now the 100. And while the Big Bash, 100, etc., do not possibly, pay as much as the IPL does, there is that cushion. So there's not the worry that, so what if I fail in Test cricket? I'll go bang, bang, and I scored 25, quick runs, very attractive runs, and I get out. Never mind, I've got the IPL. So I think that cushion is perhaps, in my view, it's a mental thing. Why would you do something like this? Why would you go bang, 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 unless you knew that even if you fail, there's something waiting for you? So that's the way I look at it.
Could I ask the audience, have you heard of a sticky dog? What's a sticky dog?
It's an uncovered wicket. Rained on probably overnight, and the
Yes.
greatest exponent, the chap called Underwood.
Yes, you are a very close observer of the game. It's a wet and sticky wicket, but there were days, which we don't have anymore, when cricket, even at the highest level, was played on uncovered pitches. So the elements would come into play in a much bigger way than what it is today. And this fundamental difference, because you've played in both eras, how did you find the difference between uncovered and covered pitches?
Well, obviously with covered pitches, any rain factor didn't come into play at all. And so the pitches were pretty much uniform for 5 days, with the normal wear and tear that you would associate with pitches. To be honest, again, I played on uncovered pitches for maybe just 2 years of my international career, 2-3 years. Then the covered pitches came in. And I think a lot of it also happened because of the need to provide spectators a game of cricket. Because if you had a situation where rain fell and the matches finished in no time, once the rain stopped, some of the bowlers like an Underwood or some guys who bowled a cutter as well, they would run through the opposition just like that, because they'd be able to get the ball to cut either way prodigiously, with the batsman having very little option. So
in 74, when you came here, it was uncovered.
Yes, it was. So those, I think it was right. It was the right call to make, to have pitches covered, because I think you owe it to the spectators to give them a good game of cricket. And so you could possibly say, for the bowlers it's become harder work. For the batsmen, maybe just a little bit easier.
That's right. That's right. We've just watched a test match with New Zealand. New Zealand, very deserving winners of the inaugural World Test Championship. And looking back, I observed that in 6 innings against New Zealand, India have failed to cross 250. And in 4 of those 6 innings, India have failed to get to 200. So being bowled out for less than 200. What is the problem of this current generation playing against New Zealand?
I think firstly, I think you've got to accept that the conditions that we saw last week in Southampton were more suited for New Zealand, because they're used to playing in similar conditions, you know, overcast conditions, cold weather. We are simply not used to playing with a full sleeve jumper. It just, you know, I mean, you might turn around and say it doesn't restrict you. It restricts you to an extent. So I think all the elements, etc., were in favor of New Zealand, and to their credit, they utilized them perfectly. We went, in my view, neck to neck with them in the first innings. In the second innings, on the last day, for example, when we had 8 wickets in hand, that is where I think we lost the match more than the first 4 days. Because if that last day, if we had even scored 40 more runs, or even if we had batted for 40 more minutes, then it would have been impossible for New Zealand to get to their target of, you know, the target of say 160 would have been tough than say a target of 139. So I think we probably lost the match in that first session on the last day. But the reason is, again, where the patience factor is not quite there. You saw with the New Zealand captain, in both the innings, he displayed amazing patience. He held the innings together. It didn't look attractive to the generation brought up on limited overs cricket, white ball cricket. It didn't look attractive that he was leaving the ball outside the off stump, showing very good judgment of which to play, which deliveries to leave. But because he stayed there, and in the second innings as well, okay, second innings on the last day, batting had become a little bit easier with the sun out, the ball not moving as much. But it was his patience that allowed even Ross Taylor, he's an attacking batsman, Ross Taylor, or what you would call as an attacking batsman. I think it took about 15 odd deliveries to get off the mark. So I think you need to have a little combination of, you know, that technique and temperament, which Williamson showed, which Ross Taylor showed, which Devon Conway showed in the first innings in really difficult batting conditions when he got a half century. Until I think Williamson got the half century, his was the only half century in the match, Devon Conway. So I think it's a combination. It's got to be a combination of two, and that's where maybe we haven't shown that. We haven't maybe shown the patience in New Zealand. Batting was very tough in New Zealand in those 2 test matches. Absolutely similar conditions and greener pitches. Really, really grassy pitches in New Zealand and over here. So I think it wasn't easy for most batsmen would have struggled. But I think ours struggled a little bit because they are, I think, maybe tried to play one shot too many.
Was it just patience, or is there a fundamental problem against the ball moving in the air and off the seam?
That I think you show me a batsman who can turn around and say that he is comfortable against that. Any movement, every batsman likes the ball to come straight. Whenever there is a bit of movement, bit of deviation, batsmen are at sea generally. You got to show patience. What happened to England in India, we're not talking about seam, we're talking about turn now. Again, Ravichandran Ashwin, when he got that 100, he showed what patience and application could do. Batting in the third innings on a pitch where, you know, the ball was turning. So I think it's got to be a combination of two. But I wouldn't be harsh on our batsmen because those were, you know, the first 4 days here and the conditions in New Zealand were very tough for the best of batsmen.
Should we have played a practice match to get used to English conditions?
That always helps. That always helps. I think play 1 or 2 practice matches always helps you to get into the groove. You could say that with a month and a half, a little over, say, 5 weeks of no cricket after the IPL was suspended, I don't think the bowlers had enough miles in their legs to come in and bowl. It has to be 15 overs, 10 overs, where you have miles in the legs. I don't think the batsmen had that as well. And so it's nice to know that they are now planning to play a few matches against the counties before the test series starts. That's nice to know. Because this intra-squad matches, I'm not too sure the intra-squad matches can do anything much because they are playing against each other in the nets anyway. Now all that you're happening when you play intra-squad matches, you're removing the nets and you're playing against each other. So there is that competitive element is not there. The faster bowlers are going to not go bang against your top batsman with the worry that you might actually hurt somebody. So that little bit of, sort of pullback is there, which doesn't help the competitive juices to flow, or, for the competitive juices to get the practice when you're playing the internationals.
So we've lost in England for the last 2 tours. I'm talking about the current generation, not the team that came in 2011 and also lost, but in 2014 and 2018, the present generation of Indian cricketers lost pretty badly. Do you think it can be different this time?
I think it'll be different this time. Firstly, I think August, September, the pitches will be a lot drier. August, September, okay, now the England bowlers are contracted, England players are contracted like the Indian players, so they're not playing county cricket. So they'll be a lot more fresher. When they were playing county cricket as well as test cricket, then when they came to play test cricket, the faster bowlers in the months of August, September, you could see that they might be carrying the odd injury. The pace had gone down just that little bit from, tiredness of the human body. But that is unlikely to happen. But if the weather is good, the sun is out and the pitches are dry, then I expect our team to do very well.
Before I come to questions, let me just ask you one thing. In your experience as a cricketer, the application, the concentration, the leadership, the psychology that was involved in your career, how does that apply, or does it apply to somebody who's in business or in an enterprising situation? So later, you've been successful post-retirement. You had an outstanding cricketing career and then a successful career after retirement. Do you think what you learned as a cricketer has applications as far as the future?
Sure. Not in every situation, but there are so many situations which are very similar. For example, I would say as a batsman, if a batsman has to score 100 and suddenly 6-7 wickets have gone, you have numbers 10 and 11 coming into bat. How does a batsman get to 100 knowing that numbers 10 and 11 don't have the capability of surviving more than a couple of deliveries? So what he has got to do, he has got to try and farm the strike, as they call it, as much as possible, play the majority of the over, and then of the 5th or the 6th ball, steal a single. So what you're doing in a work environment is sometimes that you are somebody who is probably more capable than somebody who is not. But if you want your team, if you want your business to do well, you've also got to take care of that person. But that person also has to apply himself to stick around with you. It might be whichever way, he's also got to apply himself to stick around with you, though his speciality is bowling. So as a batsman, he can't do much. But if he still applies himself as a batsman, a little bit for those 2 deliveries that he might survive, so the main batsman or whoever the batsman is can get to 100, then I think that is what we look to do. For bowlers as well. Bowlers, the fielders have to save the runs. The fielders have to take the catches for the bowlers to get wickets. Having said that, the bowler at the other end, he's also got to bowl well. He may not get the wickets, but he has to bowl tightly, not give away runs, and ease the pressure. If at the other end runs are being scored quite freely, the threatening bowler can be just blocked, or we'll go to the other end and we'll get the runs. So I think it's a combination. Everybody has to come together. Tactics. And work together. And I think that is what you learn. You learn when a newcomer comes into the team, what do you do with the newcomer? See, Ajit Wadekar, when he was captain, he took us, the youngsters in the team. We used to go to his room every evening. In 1971 West Indies tour, every evening we were in Ajit Wadekar's room. I was either in Ajit Wadekar's room, and after Ajit, if he felt a little bit tired, I would go to my hero ML Jaisimha's room. And I would spend the evenings over there and just sit with them. They would be talking cricket. There was nothing else. I mean, they just talk cricket. And, pick up little points from them. But how they looked after a youngster, gave him confidence, is also important. You nurture the next generation. And I think that is also an important aspect.
Well, we have a surprise. Can we have the surprise question, please?
Sunshine, question number one, how you adjust today's cricket if you have to play? Second, how you manage in your debut series against genuine quick bowlers and getting so many runs when you never faced any fast bowler of that speed? Thank you, Sunshine. Have fun.
Yeah, we've been on the WhatsApp group over the last couple of days because of the 30th anniversary of the 1983 World Cup win and a couple of things hopefully coming up here. So, well, what I can say to Caps is, you asked me the question, so I guess the second question is answered by saying I batted against bowlers who bowled from 18, 20 yards. Also batted just behind the stands at the Brabourne Stadium. There was no Wankhede Stadium then, where there's a concrete, walking path. Have somebody, dip a rubber ball in water, in a bucket of water, and then throw the rubber ball at you. So that rubber ball becomes actually pretty hard. So it can sting you. It can't break a bone, but it can sting you. But it also comes very quickly. So he could throw that. Then he done that. So those are the two sort of methods in which I try to sort of get used to playing fast bowling. As far as how I would have adjusted, I think I would have enjoyed it. I would have enjoyed playing modern day cricket. T20 cricket, I would have absolutely loved it. First and foremost, in T20 cricket, fielding only 20 overs. That's the biggest plus. And then, of course, as a batsman, you have the license, liberty, go bang, bang, bang. If you get a few, great. I mean, if you played a bad shot and got out in Test cricket, and you got told off by the manager, you got told off by the captain, what kind of a shot is this? But in 20 cricket, nobody's going to say anything.
Doesn't matter.
So Caps, I would have adjusted quite nicely. But having said that, I think if he was available today, I think he would probably be the highest paid player in the franchises. He would go for the highest price, not just because of his of his cricketing ability, but because of his ability to get the crowd with him. Cricketing ability we all know, but he had this amazing connect with the crowd. The crowds loved him wherever he played. He played here, the crowds loved him. Played in Australia, the crowds loved him. It's like, Kapil, going on. So he would have been an absolute phenomenal.
A great hit, yes. Can we have a question from the audience, please? Yes.
Hi, Sunny. First of all, I loved your tribute to your partner, Chetan Chauhan. Really magnanimous, right? I wanted to ask you, Sunny, as fans, you really look forward to a game. You go out on a limb to buy tickets, you go to ballots, and you make the effort, going from London to Southampton, sitting there in the rain, supporting the team, and then you get this fifth day performance where you just feel the team has thrown it away. People like, Pant, playing a cavalier innings, people like Ashwin coming. Like you said, total lack of patience, and so fans' hopes are dashed. And I feel that at least 5 out of 8 Test playing nations would have drawn that game, if not lost it, even in these conditions with the amount of time there was. So do cricketers, when they play, do think of fans' expectations and that they are creating so much disappointment by playing a bit irresponsibly, I would feel.
Just one second. For the sake of the online people, the question is, do the cricketers, when playing in a test match, and the reference was to the just concluded Southampton test, which India lost, do cricketers take into account the sentiments of the crowd? And the crowd, in this case, the Indian section, was certainly disappointed with the outcome.
I think if you concentrate on the game, you're aware of the crowd's expectations. Make no mistake, I think you're aware of your fans' expectations of you. And sometimes that can actually put a little bit of pressure on you. Because, if, for example, you're asking for room service, and the guy comes and gets you your breakfast or gets you your lunch or whatever, and generally in India, not so much here, but generally in India, the the pressure starts by him saying, if like it used to happen to me, they would say, "Ki, sir, tomorrow 100, huh? Want 100." So as he's given you your breakfast or lunch or dinner, sir, tomorrow 100. And so you'd say, "Oh, thank you. And you would say, I would look upon that as him wishing me for 100. Rather than looking at it as he's demanding 100 or asking 100, I would look at it as him wishing me. But the second question was the second ask was the one that was most difficult to deal with. Sir, 1 or 2 tickets for tomorrow's match. So that was the toughest part. But yes, I think players are generally aware of because their popularity increases when they perform well. So I think they are very aware of that happens. But again, I think sometimes things go wrong. Rishabh Pant has played in pretty similar manner in Australia. Obviously, pitches were different there. Ball wasn't doing as much. And he's taken India home in the Gabba test. He almost took India home in Sydney. So because you mentioned Rishabh Pant, I'm saying here, yes, maybe he got just that little bit, At the end of the day, whether you're defending or whether you're attacking, shot selection is the key. You make the wrong choice, shot selection, whether it's defend or attacking, you're going to get out. But make no mistake, I think they are aware of every cricketer who plays, every Indian cricketer who plays is aware of the fans' expectation. He does not want to let the fan down, but sometimes, things like this happen.
I'll come to you in a minute. There's a question which has come in online, and the question is from a gentleman called Fahim, and his question is, was Imran Khan, now Prime Minister, a better player or a better captain?
I think it was a combination of both. Because honestly, if you're not a good player, it's difficult to captain. It's difficult to captain because the rest of the team is going to say, "Oh, what is he telling us? He himself is not doing anything. What is he telling us?" So Imran was a good player. He became a better batsman as he went on. He started off by being an out-and-out fast bowler who could bat a bit. But I think in the last maybe 8 or 10 years of his career, first 10 years he might have been known mainly as a fast bowler. The next 8 years of his career, he was known as an all-rounder, and then of course as a captain, because he had he had this unique situation in our part of the world where it didn't make a difference to him whether he was picked or dropped. And so he could actually, when he was captain, he could actually say, I want him in the team, because he believed in them. And once that kind of a situation happens where the players feel, look at the captain's belief in me, they also go out of their way to deliver. And you look at what Imran has given to Pakistan cricket. I mean, the number of players he's given to Pakistan cricket. Inzamam-ul Haq, I'm just naming 3 or 4. Inzamam-ul Haq, there is Wasim Akram, Waqar Yunus, Tausif Ahmad, off-spinner who they just saw in the nets, and they said he's good enough, and let's pick him in the Pakistan team. He's such a good player, good off-spinner. We haven't seen an off-spinner like this whole of Pakistan. So I think you've got to, it's got to be a combination of both, and I do believe that Imran, scored 10 out of 10 in both the departments. Huh? No, I had to come here. For the series was on India, England. So it was.
Yes, and it's a good example of cricketing experience then proving to be invaluable in terms of a very different field, politics.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the compulsions in Pakistan are, but obviously leading a country is never easy. Leading a cricket team is also not easy. But leading a country with all the various pulls and pressures is not easy.
Yeah, he's certainly been successful, become Prime Minister. I'll come to 3 questions one by one. Yes, the gentleman at the back.
Sir,
Hi.
My name is Kamal Prabhakar, and always a pleasure to see you, not only when I saw you playing, but a couple of secrets about you. One, how do you keep yourself so young and fit? You know, even till today, you're looking almost the same what you were on the ground when you were playing. That's number one. Number two is, who did you fear from the bowling side? You know, you never used to wear a helmet, and you know, you were one of the greatest batsmen that people have ever seen. And thirdly, 1983, the World Cup you won. People don't still remember, or they do remember the cups India have won, but 1983 has been a special year, special time, and I personally am honored to sponsor the new book which is coming out, as you know. I'm one of the ones in London.
Yes.
In India, we done the
Yesterday.
book we did.
Yesterday.
Looking forward that book to come out because I think it's going to be a very interesting book.
Yeah.
But mainly, who did you fear in your time when you opened the batting and had the India team and the Indians on your shoulders?
I didn't actually fear anybody, but there were some bowlers that you were just a little bit careful about, and I would think that the bowler that I was most careful about was Andy Roberts, because Andy had this unbelievable ability to get you out, even if you're past 100. So Andy Roberts was the one that I was most concerned about. In the spinning department was Derek Underwood. Derek was also very, very difficult to play. And to your first question, I can say only very simply about looking and all that, use a lot of hair color. Color the hair. And luckily I'm not a foodie. Luckily I'm not a foodie, which means I generally eat very little. I'm not a good guest to have at home because the lady of the house thinks that I have not enjoyed her food, the food that she's cooked. When I've just been, since I was growing up, I've just been a very poor eater. So maybe that also helps in me not sort of ballooning up as much.
And do you still get a lot of present and past Indian cricketers, great players? Do they still come for a little bit of advice from you and getting that little, what they can do to better or conditions or something like that?
They have a coach now, so they generally tend to go to their coaches rather than to former players. But I would say that the generation before that, say the Sachin Tendulkar, Lakshmans, Dravids, Sehwags, they would, I think that time the interaction was just that much better maybe. And so it was, they would come and they would talk, and basically it was a matter of trying to tell them that there was very little wrong. That if they were not scoring runs, it was that, the opposition had bowled a good delivery and there was nothing really, and generally there was really nothing wrong in their technique or something like that. So, but the interactions then were a lot closer. This is the new generation, perhaps, it's a different situation.
Sunil Amar.
Sunny, one thing, in the 83 World Cup, when you won that World Cup, we were underdogs. Nobody realized what was going to happen. Chances were that you knew we were going back home. You went back to the hotel. What happened? I mean, suddenly it must have been, no champagne in the fridge, or what happened?
See, I think...
Question is about the 1983 World Cup.
The World Cup win, it's amazing that everybody thought West Indies is going to win. So the champagnes, the bottles of champagne, were kept in the West Indies dressing room instead of the Indian change room. And Kapil Dev had to go and tell them to send some champagne to our room, which is what actually happened. Kapil, yesterday was the anniversary, so Kapil was telling the story of how he had carried a bottle of champagne from India, and when we reached the finals, it was in his bag, and he said, whether we win or lose, we are going to open this bottle of champagne. Well, not only that bottle, but we got some bottles from the other side, from the West Indies room. Then we went to the hotel. The hotel was jam-packed with Indian supporters and absolutely delirious with joy. It was great to see that on the faces of of the Indians. I mean,
In the lobby.
they were smiling. The smiles were, almost like showing 64 teeth. It was just a wonderful, wonderful feeling to see the happiness on, so many.
West Indians, and what did they suddenly?
They were obviously not happy. I happened to get the ball in my hand. When the ball deflected of Michael Holding's pads, it came towards Gully, and my initial reaction, because from there you can't make out if the batsman is out LBW or not. My initial reaction was to try and stop a leg by in case they go for it. So by the time I reached the ball, the umpire had given the batsman out, and as you looked up, you saw the crowd running in. So I remember picking the ball up, putting it in my pocket and running. And I think I keep joking that even Usain Bolt wouldn't have been able to catch me in that so far.
One more question. Okay, the gentleman here.
They say practice makes you perfect.
Yeah.
But some say practice makes you permanent. Now, in your early part of your career versus the latter part of your career, how much time were you spending on strategy? How did that change over a period of time?
So strategy is the question in his career.
Because you would have gone through more situations.
Sure.
Right? So just wondering how the...
So what I tried to do as much as possible was, this was prior to the video coming in, was to try and read autobiographies of different cricketers, try and get a sense of the way they thought about their cricket, try and see if I could sort of absorb some of that. Try and get also on the eve of the matches, get a sense of what the opposition might be playing, which bowlers, what their strengths were, talk to people who had played against them, talk to the umpires. Particularly in England. In England, you have former players as umpires, 9 times out of 10, and so therefore to talk to them and find out what's so special about, say, Malcolm Marshall, what's so special about Andy Roberts, what's so special about a Jon Snow. So get a sense of what they do, and they would be very, very obliging. They would come and tell you. So you sort of educated yourself just that little bit with what you were expected. Like, preparing yourself mentally to expect this, and then saying to yourself, okay, so this is his strength, so I'm not going to play this particular shot against this bowler. So that's how you strategized against every opposition. And that was the one way of sort of, like I said, putting yourself in a match situation, that this is what is going to happen, or likely to happen.
So, okay, one last question.
How do you compare Kohli as a strategic thinker to Michael Vaughan or Braley? Because he has been abysmal.
See, they're leading different sides. Michael Vaughan leading an English side, or Mike Braley also leading an English side. So it's difficult to compare. But with Kohli, again, he's a performer. And as a performer, sometimes, and as an outstanding performer, you tend to expect that the others will also rise to that same level. That doesn't happen. Didn't happen with Sir Garfield Sobers when Garfield Sobers was captaining. For him, the game was so easy. So Gary Sobers, batting, bowling, fielding, anything was so easy. And if sometimes, therefore, you don't put yourself in a position of the lesser talented person, look, I need to think, that person cannot think like me. Maybe I need to think like him to maybe help him play to his full potential. So when that kind of a marriage happens, so, that is where, great captains come through. So what Mike Braley would do with an Ian Botham was, wind him up a little bit. Wind him up saying something, standing next to him in the slip, say something. And then Ian would want to prove Braley wrong in the next over. He would say something, I did something similar a year or so before, actually, before the Botham's Ashes. Now, Kapil had got a brilliant 100, and we knew what he was capable of as a batsman. Unbelievable. I still think that, if he just played as a batsman, didn't think of himself as a bowler, hadn't bowled, overs, and therefore got just a little bit tired, he would have scored at least 2,500, 3,000 runs more in Test cricket. He had that much ability. He had unbelievable ability. But there was this series. We had played a series earlier on against, I think, the Australians. And then Pakistan came to India. And he was just scoring terrific 20s, 30s, tuck, easy, and then getting out. So I'd taken him out for dinner, with me. I put my arm around his shoulder and said, yeah, why are you throwing your wicket away? Occasionally scolded him. Are kya yaar, how can you play a shot like that? Nothing was working. Nothing was working. And I was at that time writing a column as well. So in my column, I said, I don't think Kapil will ever get a Test 50 again. I just said that. Kapil will never get a Test 50 again. And it was a magazine, and a weekly magazine, in which this had been said. The next match we played was played in Mumbai on a pitch where the ball was turning square. And Kapil was driving through extra cover and off spinner. On a pitch where the ball is turning, driving through extra cover and cover is impossible. For the best, only a Vishwanath could do it perhaps. I'm telling you, nobody else in the others would probably work it with the turn, work it to the onset, work it to the onset, play this. But he was driving, through the covers, and he got a 68. And he came into the dressing room, and his first words were, "Skipper, I got a half century." And I said, yes, that's what I wanted. That is what I wanted. So sometimes you've got to use, some different methods to try and get the best. I mean, with the ability that he had and with the centuries that he scored after that, it clearly shows that he had the ability, but it was just that they'll wind up. Like I said, the earlier method of putting an arm around his shoulder and telling him, "Arey yaar, aisa mat kar, kya shot ke liye?" It's not those things did not work. So I said, let me try this, and it happened.
Sunil, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for a lovely audience. Both in person and online. And over to you, Vikas.
Thank you. Thank you, Sunny Bhai, for coming here, gracing the occasion. You've been very kind and generous with your time. On behalf of TIE London and TIE Global, we'd like to thank everybody who's come here, as well as those who have joined online.
Thank you.